creepypasta isn't just internet horror, it's modern folklore. Stories passed from screen to screen, whispered in the darker corners of the web. Some are strange, some feel disturbingly real, and others, they stay with you long after the screen goes dark. Welcome to Hauntingly Yours. If you enjoy these creepypasta stories, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and drop a comment. I truly love reading what you have to say. Tonight, you'll be listening to 5 creepypasta tales that are unsettling, eerie, and impossible to forget. Let's begin. I was sitting on the couch in the basement, scrolling mindlessly through the endless library of content on Netflix, when the text came. It had been sent from an unknown number and read, "Whatever you do, don't leave the basement. Lock the door. Turn off the lights. You are in grave danger. Do not leave the basement." At first, I thought it was a prank text. Some punk texting numbers at random, hoping to scare someone. But at the same time, it was a little strange how they knew I was in my basement. After all, someone who was texting this to random numbers wouldn't be able to tell if the person they were pranking even had a basement. I inadvertently shot a quick glance at the small basement window. Nothing. Not a soul in sight. I decided to ignore the message, figuring whoever it was had simply gotten lucky and had texted someone who happened to be in their basement. However, less than a minute later, I got another text. "It is urgent that you heed this warning. Close and lock the door. Turn off all lights. Silence all electronics. And whatever you do, don't leave your basement." I swallowed. Did they know I hadn't shut my door? That I hadn't turned off my lights? I was beginning to feel worried, but a quick glance at the window proved that no one was watching me, or at least that no one was there now. I stood up, turned off the big screen, and stretched. I decided to get a little sleep in before I had to go in for work that night. As I walked up the stairs, however, the texts started. My phone began vibrating non-stop, receiving text after text after text. As I reached the top step, I pulled out my phone to see who they were from. The texts had all come from that same unknown number saying things like, "Do not leave your basement. It is imperative that you stop moving right now and turn off all lights. Your life is in danger. Do not move. Please, this is for your own good. Do not leave the basement." How the hell did they know I was moving? The basement doorway loomed in front of me, showing the dark expanse of my kitchen. I hadn't realized that the sky had become overcast. I cautiously took a step into the kitchen. My phone buzzed again, but I ignored it. Whoever was texting had to be playing some sort of prank, though I wasn't finding it very funny. The floorboard creaked beneath my foot as I stepped out into the kitchen. Suddenly, a flash of lightning lit up the grey sky, and almost immediately, the rumble of thunder followed. I shivered, but continued to walk. Then, I heard a loud creak. However, this time, it didn't come from under my foot. In fact, it didn't come from a floorboard at all. This creak came from my door. The sound was the unmistakable noise of the front door opening slowly, as if whoever was opening it was attempting to do it quietly. As soon as the door opened, I got another text. I didn't bother to get out my phone, just leaped down into my basement and closed the door. I locked it, strung the chain, and even carried a heavy chair up to barricade the door. But I still didn't feel safe. I carefully crept down the stairs and sat down on an old chair, pulling my phone out of my pocket to read the last few texts. The first one read, "For God's sake, please don't leave." The most recent one read, "Now you have been chosen. Do not trust anyone, and don't leave the basement. I've been chosen. What the hell does that mean? Finally, I did what I should have done in the first place. I texted the unknown number back. Listen, I don't know what's going on, and I'm not sure that I want to find out. Please just leave me the hell alone. I don't want to be a part of any of this. They didn't respond. Suddenly I heard a sound coming from behind the basement door. A creak. The sound of pressure being placed upon a floorboard. Then I heard the sound of the doorknob being jiggled. I froze. It jiggled again. And again. Every small noise coming from beyond the locked door of the basement filled me with terror, paralyzing me with horror. I looked around the small basement for anything that could remotely be considered a weapon. The room was, unfortunately, mostly empty, with the closest thing to a self-defense tool being the remote for the TV. I grabbed it and crouched down in the corner of the room. My breathing felt too loud. My head felt like it was spinning. The cold basement seemed to close in around me. I started imagining sounds. At least I thought I was imagining them. I began hearing footsteps, voices, whispers. They echoed around me. I heard yells coming from outside my house, then screams, then silence. After what felt like an hour, the sound stopped. I breathed a sigh of relief. Maybe it was all in my head after all. Then I heard a knock on the basement window. As previously mentioned, the basement window is small. In fact, I could barely see out of it. However, I was able to catch a glimpse of something outside darting past it. I mustered up every last drop of courage in me and weakly yelled, "Who's there?" A few moments of silence followed. Then a voice replied, "Oh, just a traveler seeking shelter from the storm." The voice sounded male and somewhat strained, like he was speaking through gritted teeth. Who the hell would be out here in the middle of the rain? I live in a rural area in the middle of nowhere. I don't have any neighbors, and the nearest grocery store is half an hour's drive away. Something was wrong. "I'm sorry, but I can't let you in." "Why not?" the voice replied, this time a hint of anger in it. I didn't reply. The texts and the sounds in my house seemed a little too real to be a part of some elaborate prank. Instead, I shifted a little to my right, just out of view from the window for anyone looking inside the house from the yard. Thank God I did that, because a few seconds after I did, something leaned over and peered into the dark basement. It's impossible to describe the thing in the window, simply because I could hardly see it. The dust and dirt combined with the size of the window made it difficult to make out what was staring at me. All that I could see were two solid red eyes looking around inside my basement. Two small black pupils glanced around, attempting to find me. I placed my head between my knees and tried to steady my breathing. It's been 48 hours since then. I've been living off of the potato chips and energy drinks down in my basement. I'm running out, and I know soon I'll have to leave to get more food. I've spent the past couple of days sitting in the dark, listening to the sounds of footsteps and knocking on my doors. It's maddening, but there's nothing I can do. I've tried calling the cops, and I've tried calling the place I work at. I have a signal, but for some reason, it never works. No one ever picks up. I'm terrified, and I don't know what to do. If anyone is out there reading this, please, if you receive an odd text from an unknown number, listen to what it says. I had a dream last night. It was the kind that seems real right up to the point where you wake up. Some things were strange about it. Certain things were really strange about it. But it never occurred to me that it might not actually be happening. I'm still not prepared to say that it didn't happen. I'm not spiritual, and I don't really understand stuff like that. I just feel like I've been somewhere, and now I'm back, and I know something happened when I woke up, and I think while I was asleep too. I went to bed last night with a strange feeling. We all remember times when we felt like we were being watched, but this was more than that. I felt like there was someone there with me, but still I couldn't keep from falling asleep. I don't exactly remember the beginning of the dream. The first thing I recall was starting at my house and walking. All of my neighbors' houses were gone. I was heading down a long, empty road, and there was no one around but me. I don't remember what I had been doing at my house beforehand, but I may have been there a while before I started walking. I recall feeling a strong urge to walk. I felt okay walking down that road though. It was cold and dark and I felt a little lost, but I wasn't afraid, not like I had been in my room. I don't know how long I was on that road. It felt like a long time. I mean like days long, but I never felt tired and I just wanted to keep walking. The road changed after a while. It had been straight and nondescript the whole time, but eventually I reached a bend and then a fork. When I reached the fork, I wasn't alone anymore. A familiar voice called out to me from the side of the road. "It's good to see you," the voice whispered. "I'm just sorry to see you here." I turned to face the voice, knowing who I would see. It was an old friend from my childhood, someone I haven't seen in years. He looked just a little different from how I remembered him, but not by much. He was older than when I saw him last, obviously, but he seemed at least a few years younger than me somehow, even though we're supposed to be the same age. He was also very pale, unbelievably white in fact, and he had deep circles around his eyes that were solid blue, as were his lips. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "I'm here to warn you," he replied. Naturally, I was all ears. "There's a man in your house right now," he explained. "What do you mean there's someone in my house? I was just there, I think." I didn't actually know how long ago I had been there. I wasn't sure how long I had been walking. "You don't understand," my friend stammered with apparent urgency. "He's really in your house right now." I had no idea what he was talking about, but I was curious. "Who is he?" I asked him. "He's the cold man. He comes to people at night when they're afraid." The cold man. I'd never heard of anyone like that before. I wanted to know more, so I asked, "What does he do?" "He waits to be noticed, then he makes his move. You know that chill you feel on your back when something really scares you? That's not just nerves. That's him standing behind you." "What for?" I wondered. "What does he do once you notice him?" My friend looked down and away. He wouldn't answer that question. "Just don't let him in," he cautioned. "What do you mean?" "He can be close forever," my friend explained. "He'll walk around your house at night and even stand in your room while you're asleep, like he is in yours right now. He can know where you are. He can even be looking right at you, but he won't find you unless you let him." "How does he find you? I mean, how do you let him?" My friend looked to either side of the road like he was worried that someone might overhear. He leaned in very close and whispered, "If you see him, if you hear him, or if you ever start to feel suddenly very cold, don't move. Don't talk to him. Don't acknowledge him. Don't ever let him in." "I don't understand," I admitted. "How do I get rid of him?" "You can't," my friend replied in a small, shuddering voice. "Look, I'm out of time." "Out of time?" I repeated, not sure what he meant exactly. My friend shook his head. His eyes were wide and he was shivering. Off in the distance, I noticed a dark figure creeping up behind him, but something kept me from speaking. "My time is up," he stammered. "Just whatever you do, don't let him in, and whatever you do, don't answer it." Something pulled my friend into the darkness, and suddenly I couldn't see him anymore. Before I could follow after him, though, I was startled awake by a loud noise. I was sitting in my room, fully dressed with my shoes on. I can swear that I wasn't dressed when I went to bed. My shoes and legs were covered in dust, my feet were sore, and I could hear a ringing noise right next to me. In the confusion of waking up from such a vivid dream, I didn't immediately recognize it. I felt so cold. Then I looked down and saw my phone. That was the source of the ringing. Remembering my friend's words, I didn't answer it. Eventually, it stopped ringing. The room was cold as ice. The feeling that I was being watched was as strong as it had been when I had fallen asleep. I could hear something inside my closet, but I dared not move. I just closed my eyes and waited. Eventually, I heard footsteps walking away. Still from inside the closet, it was as if they were walking down some unseen hallway. Though my closet is small and I couldn't see anything unusual in there, when the footsteps got far enough away, the cold lifted. He didn't get in this time. If my dream was true, if the thing in my closet was who I think it was, I must never let him in. I think he'll be back tonight, though. That's when he's supposed to come, as my friend told me. I don't know what happened to my friend. I just hope people will remember his warning. If you start to feel cold while reading this, don't be alarmed. If you hear something in your house, just ignore it. You can't afford to let him find you. Don't let the cold man in. Last night, my son came into my room. I woke up to him looking down at me with wide eyes. This was pretty unusual. He usually slept peacefully through the night and never had nightmares of any kind. "What is it, sweetie?" I asked softly. "I can't sleep," he replied. His eyes began to water a little bit, but he kept a straight face. "What's wrong?" I sat up and began to rub my eyes until my son interrupted me and pulled my hands away. "Don't close your eyes, Mommy. It comes closer when you do that," he whispered. I stared at him. Tears began to fall from his eyes, and I realized he hadn't closed them since he had come to my room that night. I looked out past the chilly, empty hallway and into my son's room. Nothing. After hearing my son suck in a horrified breath when I closed my eyes, something creaked in the house. My eyes opened to a dark, mangy, hunched-over figure staring back at me with white, bloodshot eyes. It kept its gaze on me, and mine on his. It felt like a staring contest, only whenever you blink, you lose, and it moves forward to greet you. I always hated games like these when I was a child. We've gone through 2 bottles of eye drops. Good thing I stocked up on an extra bottle. You never know when you might need them. The last one is almost gone, though, and my son and I are drying up again. The figure in his room made its move a couple of times from our mistakes and hasn't strayed from my doorway since. 2 hours. There's only 2 more hours until the sun is expected to come up, but I don't know if we can last that long. I remember how great it feels to envelop my eyes under my eyelids. It's at the side of my bed now. My son cries with his eyes open, and it looks like it's helping him. It's too bad I'm the one with the case of dry eyes. And now, I can feel its horrid, stinking breath upon my face. Does anyone remember an old PC game from the early 1990s called Mr. Mix? It was mainly a typing game, similar to Mario Teaches Typing, where you have to put words into a box to make a chef, the titular Mr. Mix, place ingredients into a bowl. Unlike most typing games, however, The game was notorious for having an insane difficulty curve. It had a words per minute requirement for each level, starting as low as 10 on level 1 and as high as 85 on the third. By level 5, the requirement reached over 500, effectively making it impossible to proceed any further. One of the main things that people immediately noticed about the game was the background music. On the first level, it was an unsettling pattern of growls that got progressively louder as the level went on, often damaging early computer speakers, not designed to handle extremely high volumes. The second level had no music at all, and the third had what sounded like a very low-quality recording of a hairdryer playing in the background. The remaining 2 levels featured an incredibly loud, high-pitched ringing throughout that caused severe eardrum damage to those who managed to get that far. Another rather disturbing aspect of the game was the design of Mr. Mix himself. He was a large, round-faced, overweight man with beady eyes and red spots on his cheeks. Most children who played the game reported having vivid nightmares of Mr. Mix speaking to them in a quiet, raspy voice and threatening them to keep quiet about something. However, none of them could remember exactly what that was. One psychologist who saw many of these children reported being disturbed by the sheer amount of terror on their faces as they recounted details of the nightmare. Many of them broke down into tears in the process, begging for their parents to save them. However, no direct relationship to the game itself could be determined by these few cases, since not all children had suffered the same adverse effects. For obvious reasons, the game did not sell very well. It remained in relative obscurity until a few years ago, when PC hackers got hold of a ROM of it and started digging through it. Using memory hacking software, they managed to crack the game's code and bypass the impossible 5th level. What they found, however, was highly disturbing and caused many of them to quit the expedition altogether. According to the reports these hackers left behind, the game behaves very strangely if the 5th level is bypassed. The game crashes violently and closes, writing a bunch of files to the user's System 32 directory to the point that the RAM is almost completely filled. These files are reportedly pictures of people with horribly deformed faces, appearing to scream in pain and agony, their eyes bleeding from their tear ducts, and their outer layer of skin torn clean off in multiple places. If the user attempts to delete these files, their computer will violently crash and blue screen, causing permanent, irreparable damage to the hard drive. The hackers found that this was caused by a lone byte in the game's ROM that triggered when the 5th level was completed. After removing this byte, they were able to proceed to the 6th and final level. Unfortunately, all of the original hackers declined to discuss what they saw in the final level. Each of them became extremely paranoid and reclusive afterwards, refusing to talk about anything related to the game and displaying extreme symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. Most of them ceased to be able to form coherent sentences within a week. Within a month, all of them had gone missing. All remaining copies of the game were destroyed. To this day, no one knows what was in it that caused the group so much psychological damage. Maybe it's better that way. 2 years after this incident, a man was arrested for attempting to kidnap an 8-year-old girl from a grocery store. Through DNA and fingerprint analysis, he was identified as one of the original hackers who had viewed the final level of the game. He was wearing a white chef's hat and had a look of unspeakable malice and insanity on his face. When interrogated, the man would only say one thing: "I'm Mr. Mix. Shh." When I was a little girl, about 6, maybe 7, my great-grandmother would tell me this story about a man people called Skinny. She would tell me that Skinny was a towering twig of a man. He was all skin and bones, with eyes as sunken as a canyon, and fingers as long and as bony as Death's, she would say. He never came out during the day. He always came out when the sun went down. That was the part that scared me the most about Skinny. She talked in great detail about what he would do to children who got lost on the way home during the night. So when the sun starts to go down, my great-grandmother would say, "You get your keister home, or else Skinny will get you. Then he'll sew your mouth shut so you can't scream, and then sells you to any demon who wants you, whatever the price." This terrified me. As I got older, I started to forget Skinny. My great-grandmother passed when I was 8 years old, so I never heard that awful story ever again. But I would have these nightmares of this tall, skeleton man sewing my mouth shut while I tried to scream. They always resurfaced at random moments. I'd wake up in a cold sweat and would try not to look out my bedroom window. After a while, as I said before, I started to forget about him. I shrugged the nightmares off as just bad dreams. So I forgot, but I never should have forgotten, and after my experience, I never did. It was 3 years after my great-grandmother's death, and child disappearances started to become a problem in my town. The whole town agreed that all children had to come home before sundown. I usually obeyed this rule, but one afternoon, I was with my friend Jerry. He was my best friend, and my only friend back then. After school, we used to go to the park and play in the forest. He and I did the usual childhood games: hide and seek, play in the stream, climb trees, etc. We stayed in that park until the sun went down. That was our fatal mistake. Writing about it today brings back horrifying and painful memories. Jerry and I were riding our bikes home after our day in the woods. While we were riding, I started to get the feeling we were being followed and watched. As the sun finally left the horizon, the roads we knew looked so different. They were empty of people. There was not even an animal in sight, and it was quiet, dead, silent. Dear God, it was almost deafening. Not even the sound of a cricket. Branches from trees hung down ominously around us, like long, gnarly fingers waiting to grab us and pull us into the dark. Even through the almost pitch black, I could see the look of anxiety across Jerry's face. He felt the same feelings I did about this night. We should have gone home before sundown. After what felt like an eternity of bike riding, we finally found a row of dim streetlights ahead of us. I was so relieved that we had found light after so much darkness. But joy quickly turned to dread as I saw someone standing under one of the dimmed street lamps ahead. It was some man. No, not a man. He was too tall to be anything human. His arms hung down by his side like two long poles, and his hands... Oh God, his hands. The fingers were as long and as bony as Death's. Ice ran through my veins in an instant, and I stood frozen. Fear made my body rigid, and I didn't dare pedal. Jerry froze too. I had told him the story of Skinny a while back. He never thought it was real. Hell, I never thought it was real. But it is real. He is so real. Skinny held up one of his frail fingers and put it to his lips, as if to tell us to not scream. What happened next has scarred me to this day. Out from behind Skinny came a little girl. It was just like my great-grandmother said, except it was so much more than just sewing your mouth shut. My eyes trailed up her face, away from the completely threaded mouth to her eyes. All that was left of them, that is. All she had now were just bleeding sockets. A memory rushed to the surface of my mind. I think Skinny loved and hated sunlight, said the voice of my great-grandmother. His eyes would burn if he saw day. He always wanted to see the sun and feel the warmth of it, but his eyes wouldn't allow. So what better eyes to see than through the eyes of children? Their souls are so innocent and very young. That's the only part he'll take for himself. The girl began to sob, and as she sobbed, tears of blood started to drip from where her eyes used to be. She knew we were there. Then, as if I couldn't imagine the situation to get even more horrifying, the little girl began to rip at her stitches. She dug her fingernails deep into the skin surrounding her mouth. She clawed at her upper and lower lip until they bled profusely. Blood trickled down her chin onto her neck, and then her chest, drenching her shirt in blood. Her cries, even though they were muffled, sounded urgent. I now know that she was trying to take the stitches off to tell us to run. Run and never look back. She kept ripping her flesh until she was almost at her gums. I tried holding back the bile that was slowly making its way out of my stomach. Then, the cries stopped. Everything went silent again. The girl fell to the pavement. A pool of crimson formed around her tiny body. It just oozed out of her face like a slow waterfall. I could see that sick bastard just standing there smiling. Smiling. After what he just witnessed, he just smiled in approval. That poor girl, she never deserved that. I looked at her lifeless body once more. She lay there on the sidewalk. The bleeding holes looked off into nothing. That face still haunts me today. Blood surrounded her like a dark red mud puddle. I looked up at the towering man standing before us. His smile stretched from cheek to cheek as he lifted a frail finger. It pointed straight at Jerry. That's when we bolted. My heart was pounding so loud I couldn't hear wind in my ear. When we got to my house, we dropped our bikes and ran in as fast as we could. Jerry and I came in hyperventilating with tears streaming down our cheeks. When my mom asked what was wrong, we told her everything. The girl, what she did, even told her about how we saw Skinny. She called the police thinking that we had found the man who was taking children. We went with them to the place where we saw him. I expected to see that girl still laying there, her black holes looking off into nowhere with a pool of blood around her, and her lips almost torn off. But there was nothing. No Skinny, no girl, no blood. All they found was a needle and a string of black thread attached. We begged the police to believe that what we saw was real, but they wrote it off as wild imaginations and scolded us for lying to the police about something that should be taken seriously. Our mums scolded us too, told us that we should be ashamed of ourselves. We knew what we saw, though. After that, Jerry never wanted to come outside and play anymore. I didn't blame him. 2 weeks after we encountered Skinny, Jerry committed suicide. This was his suicide note. I can't take it anymore. He's going to get me. I knew I was a goner the minute he pointed at me. I can't sleep anymore because of the nightmares. I still see that girl with no eyes. I see him in my nightmares too. He wants my soul. He's the reason I don't go outside, but he waits for me. I see him outside my window sometimes at night. He just stands there waiting for me in the darkness. I don't want him to take me. I don't want to end up like that girl. Dear God, please forgive me. I can't do it anymore. I'll die by my own hand before I let that bastard pluck my eyes out and sew my mouth shut. Forgive me, Jerry. My world shattered that day. My only friend, gone. I think Skinny knew what Jerry would do, though. He just mentally tortured him until he gave up. That's what he does if he doesn't get you the first time. He'll make you think he's going to take you until you do yourself in. He'll come to you in nightmares. Maybe he'll stand outside your house at night, just watching, waiting, holding his needle and thread, just waiting for you to break curfew. I don't go outside when the sun starts to go down anymore. I shut all of my windows and lock all of my doors in the evening. He's there, watching. I have a better mind than to look out and actually see if he is. I know he is. If there is one word of advice I could give you, it'd be this. Come home before sundown. Watch out for the man of skin and bone, with fingers as long and bony as death's, the taker of eyes, taker of souls, the devil's salesman. Beware of the man they call Skinny.